Hey, beautiful Calc students. I'm just making this quick video in case you need a little bit of a refresher on how to use your graphing calculator. And so let's just get right into it. I have graphing calculator software on my laptop, so I'm just going to sort of pull that baby up. And then we can get started. So for the graphic calculator on here, what's going to happen is that you are going to be able to see what I'm clicking or what keys I push by they turn red. And then also if you accidentally get lost, then what you can do is on the bottom of the screen, it kind of tells the history. And then of course, feel free to, pause anytime you want to. So the first thing we want to do in calculus, what you want to make sure is that your calculator is living in radian mode. That's just kind of where it needs to live. So you're going to go find the mode button. It's right next to second. And then you just need to make sure that a couple of things are selected. Okay, one of those is that down here, you definitely want it to be in radians. So that's where we want it. And then for now, you want it to be in function. Now, those other systems that are listed right there, parametric, polar, and sequential, we actually do use them in our calculus course, but for now, we're just going to say we don't need those right now. So let's pretend you got to your calculator, your graphing calculator, and it happened to be on degree mode, right? So you would see right there, it's on degree mode. So we will just toggle over to the side on radian and hit enter, and you're golden. One of the things that you're going to get really used to with your graphing calculator is how to quit or get out of a menu. And so second mode gets you to quit and we'll bring you back to the home screen. So we're going to remind ourselves how to do a little bit of graphing. We're going to do 6 different examples. We're going to practice things like how to trace on a graph properly, how to toggle between graphs, zooming properly, different zoom functions, how to find the intersection. I'm not going to cover finding x-intercepts and y-intercepts, but actually I could throw that in if I wanted to. So let's just kind of jam into this and get going here. So we're going to go to y equals, and I had something crazy in there. So if you have something in there, you can just get rid of that by pushing clear. And I'm going to very simply type x squared. So x, and then there's a beautiful squared button. And then I'm just going to, you can hit enter or you can use the arrow down. Either one will work. And I'm going to do another guy right here. I'm going to do x squared plus 2. All right, looks good. This time I'll jazz it up and I'll just use the arrow to go down. And then this one's going to be more of just a more creative graph here. I'm going to go -2, then do parentheses, and then I'm going to go x minus 1, and then close my parentheses, hit squared, and then put plus 6. Okay, so as you look at these, you're probably saying to yourself, oh yeah, when I graph these, all of these are going to be parabolas, and you would be totally correct. So every single one of these is going to be a parabola. First one's going to be our pretty normal one. The next one's going to be shifted a little bit, maybe moving it up 2. And the third one is going to be moved 1 to the right, 6 up, and then also be flipped over and get skinnier. So we're doing all sorts of fun things. Now, if you have the TI-84 plus CE, it's going to graph these babies in color. Super exciting. Your colors may or may not match mine, but if not, it doesn't matter. It'll still graph them if you just have a regular CE. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in the right window because window for zooming, sometimes weird things happen, or the last time you used your calculator was some crazy window. So if I'm doing it for the first time, I like to find the zoom button. Okay, so the zoom button is sort of on the top. It goes y equals, then window, and then zoom. And I'm just going to get used to, guys, going down to number 6. You can actually toggle down to number 6 and hit enter, or you can just hit 6, okay? And this is going to graph them all on just a regular sort of -10 to 10 on the x's, -10 to 10 on the y's. And you can see all of my beautiful graphs. Look at all of those. Look at all those parabolas. Aren't they beautiful? I mean, honestly, they're gorgeous. Okay, so let's remind ourselves how to trace and then toggle between graphs, okay? So what I want to do is I want to choose one of my curves, okay? So if I just kind of push up and down, okay, what's going to happen is that if I just start doing this, this is not going to really be tracing on the curve. Do you see that? How it's not really tracing on the curve. I'm just kind of like moving the cursor around. So we definitely don't want that, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the trace button. Oh, okay, Mrs. Fox, I see what you did there. I hit the trace button, and now I will trace on the curves. Right now it's going to be on your first curve. And when I go over, okay, you will see that my cursor is moving along that graph. Oh, okay, so it's tracing along that graph. Okay, but you're like, oh, I didn't actually want to be on that graph. I wanted to be on the second graph. So you'll notice on your screen that somewhere it's identifying that you are, in fact, on that first curve. It says Y1. Instead of using the side-to-side arrows, use the up and down arrows. So now I'm on curve number 3. Now I'm on curve number 2. So it will just, you just use the up and down arrows to toggle between the graphs, and then the side to side arrows will move the cursor along whichever graph you are on. So good thing we practiced that. All right, let's go ahead and practice. You know what? Why don't we? I'm going to throw an extra thing in there. Let's practice finding the like the x-intercept of a curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to get myself, and I'm not going to hit trace this time. Instead, I'm going to go second calculate. And what when you are calculating the x-intercepts, you're calculating the zeros of a function. So I'm gonna you can toggle down to 2 and hit enter, or just hit 2. I'm gonna just hit 2 this time. And you can see right now that I am currently on curve number 1. I don't want to be on curve number 1. I think I want to be on curve the third curve, the black one. So I'm just going to toggle up and down until I get on the one that is my third curve. And to me, it's the one that is drawn in black ink. So I'm going to go over here, and I am going to go and I'm going to find the positive x-intercept. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that your blinking cursor is on the left-hand side of the x-intercept. And just as long as it's anywhere to the left of the x-intercept, you're going to hit enter. So you've like said, this is where I want you to like start thinking about, Mr. Calculator or Ms. Calculator, where that x-intercept is going to be. And then I'm now going to toggle more to the right. So you always want to go on the left side of it, and then on the right side. It doesn't really matter where on the right, just as long as it's to the right of the x-intercept. Hit enter again. And now it's got yourself a nice little like a strip of area that you're saying, hi, calculator, find where this graph is 0 in this range. If you make the range too big and you like encompass more than one intercept, that's not going to work. Or if you don't do it where there is an x-intercept, your calculator is going to be like, I'm confused. You didn't ask me to do the right thing. So it hasn't given me the answer yet. You have to hit it one more time, enter, because now it's asking it to guess. So you don't have to guess. You just hit enter one more time. And it goes ahead and it gives you that intercept, okay? So it is saying right here on the calculator that the 0 is at 2.7320508. If this were in calculus and we're writing this down, we'd use 3 decimal places. Calculus is all about 3 decimal places. So I would write down on my paper 2.732, and then the y-intercept is 0. Now, sometimes people get a little confused. Your calculator is using like pixels, and it's doing things to the best of its ability. If you get for the y equals something that does not say 0, but says something like, you know, I don't know, something, e to the 23rd or something like that. It's basically saying that it's 0. So like, don't worry about it. But this looks great. It looks beautiful. Okay. So this is saying this. Now, another fun thing is this X value is now actually stored in your calculator's menu. I'm going to show you something. Let's quit and just go to the home screen. If I find on this guy, if I push the X button on here and I just hit enter, that is the X value. Isn't that the coolest? You can store values. You can do all sorts of fun things. Let's do a store value right now just to do it, because sometimes you're going to want to find more than one X and you're going to want to use it to calculate something. So I can actually store this value as another letter to like come back to later. I know that some of our teachers in the past have been really, really just strong and reminding you guys about storing values. So let's go ahead and store this guy. So you could hit the X and then you hit the arrow button. The arrow button is, it's called STO, S-T-O with a little arrow, and it stands for store. So I'm going to hit store, and then I'm going to hit the alpha button and like A, B, C, something like that. So I'm going to hit alpha A and I hit enter. So now that value is stored as A, and anytime, like if I just wanted to do A, like, like times 2 or something like that, it'll totally take that value and multiply it times 2. So it's pretty cool. All right, let's get back to some other graphs here. So let's go back to the y equals. I'm going to clear out all my graphs because I want to get a new set. So I'm just going to hit clear on all these guys. I'm just toggling down. I'm hitting clear. And then I'm going to go up here back to y1. And I'm going to type in cosine of x. So I'm going to do cosine, and I'm going to hit the x button, and then I'm going to hit parentheses. Ooh, fun side note about that x button. Remember how we were talking about the different systems that you can graph in? Just like functions or polar or parametric. That button where it says x, comma, t, comma, theta, comma, n is your variable button for whatever system you're in. So when we eventually get back to polar graphs, which will be like way at the end, we're going to get back and you'll be in polar mode and you'll still hit that button and it will give you a theta instead of an x. So fun thing. So we were in Zoom standard. I want to go to Zoom trig. Okay, so I'm going to hit that Zoom button and I'm going to go to trig. What the Zoom trig does, it's number 7 here. Okay, what Zoom trig does, remember you can also just hit 7, is that it gives you from roughly about -2 pi to 2 pi, a little bit more on this one, and then -4 to 4 on the y's. So we can see that this is a beautiful cosine of x. It looks lovely. Yay, good job us. Let's go back to y equals, okay? And let's go into graph number 2. So don't clear number 1, leave graph number 1, but let's go into graph number 2, and let's type in a line for this one. I'm going to just do something simple. Y equals 2x minus 6. That's 2x minus 6. And I'm not going to change the zooming window on this one. I'm just going to say just graph regularly. And so it's going to stay in the window that it's on, and then it's going to graph a guy. There's my line. And I would like to figure out where these guys intersect. Okay, so the way that we do that is we're going to go to second, and then the trace button would be calculate. Okay, so second trace is calculate. I want to find number 5. Number 5 is the intersect, the intersection now of those two curves. So I'm going to hit enter. And right now it's blinking on one of the curves. I'm just going to toggle over to the right just a smidge so it's slightly closer to that intersection, especially if you've got graphs that are all tangled up with each other. You want to get like close to the spot. Okay, I'm going to just toggle over, and right now it's on my first curve. I'm going to hit enter. It'll automatically shift to another curve. And I'll be like, yep, that's the one I want. If you had like 3 graphs on here and you want a different curve, you toggle up and down. I'm going to hit enter, and then it says that guess thing again, so you hit enter again. And now it's going to tell you where these two guys intersect. So it intersects at the coordinate, if we were doing it calculus style, 2.577, comma, -0.845 in parentheses because it's a point. All right, let's go back to y equals. So for this guy, we're going to talk about sometimes our curves like overlap each other and it's hard to tell. With the color version, it's not like super hard to tell. You can actually do it pretty well. But sometimes it's just nice to be able to like see it being graphed, or maybe make one graph bolder than another graph, or make a graph dotted line. Like you can do all sorts of things. So let's graph 2 different curves here. So I'm going to clear both of these out. Just by hitting clear, right? And then for y1, I'm going to graph a parabola. I'm going to go x squared, so x squared, and then minus 5. Okay, so x squared minus 5. This next one, what I'm actually going to do, I want to graph the absolute value of this graph. Oh, that's fun, right? So little reminder of where absolute value is, where that key is. But I'm also going to recall my other function, okay? It would be very simple to do absolute value bars and then type in x squared minus 5. I understand that, but I want to show you just a way to get your a function, because sometimes you want to like do something super crazy to it, and it's not convenient to type the whole function again. So what you can do, let's go, we got to find the absolute value like key. So it's in the math menu. On the left-hand side of the calculator, it goes second, alpha, math. We're going to choose math. And then over this, like the number 1 to fraction button, really fun. You've got your cube roots in here, your x roots, all sorts of good stuff. But we're going to go over to number. So I toggle over to number, and I'm going to choose number 1, which is the absolute value function. So I choose number 1, and for most of you guys, it will show the absolute value bars. And so now I want to graph the absolute value of my first function, y1. So we're going to go to this key called variables. Okay, on the calculator key, it says vars, V-A-R-S. It's actually right to the left of the clear button. So it's like the third row down, the one not like right on top, right? Not right under the window, but like the third row. And then it's the fourth one, and it says vars for variables. So I'm going to choose variables, and I want to choose the y variable. So I'm toggling over to the y variables. I want to choose a function. So I hit enter for number 1, and then I want to choose y1. So I hit 1 or enter again, and it's going to put y1 in there. Okay, I'm just going to arrow over till I'm out and I'm golden. Now what I want to do is, if these were not in color, actually they overlap in a couple of spots, actually two different spots on the graph, they overlap. So one of the things that I like to do is, and I know that we did this last year in pre-calc, is sort of trace one of them, okay? So what you can do is you can go all the way to the left side and hit enter. And then if you have an older calculator, you just keep hitting enter until you get one with a bubble. Here's where you can change the color. I'm going to go ahead and find the one that has a bubble attached to it, like a little circle and a line. This is what I want it to look like. So the 0, the circle, and the line, it's going to like show a bubble while it traces. Okay, so it's going to like trace it. This is really helpful if your graph is in one color. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to go actually back to zoom standard. So I'm going to hit the zoom button, and then I'm going to choose number 6 for zoom standard, and then let's watch it graph. Okay, there's my parabola, and this is the absolute value of my parabola. Okay, so you can see how if they were the same color, it would be hard to tell where that second graph was, because they are exactly the same on sort of like the edges. So now check that out. That looks really nice for us to do. Another thing that you can do, and let's just practice it right now, is you can turn a graph off. So say like you put something super complicated in and you want to keep it there, but you don't want it to actually show up. So what you can do is, it doesn't matter which graph you're on. Let's ignore graph number 1. You can toggle over to the equal sign and just hit enter. And now it's not going to be black. Okay, so you can see that it's not selected. So the graph is still in there, but now when I hit graph, it's only going to graph the second one. There, you can see that bubble again. And so that's great, right? Now you don't have to like completely delete something if you know that you're going to need it later. It took a lot of time to type in. All right, let's do another one where we practice just doing kind of like an interesting function. And then we're going to talk about changing the window of something manually. So let's go to y equals. And again, we're just going to delete these graphs. So just clear and clear. And on this one, oh, whoops, sorry, guys, I forgot to clear that one. That's this previous time we did absolute value. Let's now try doing a greatest integer function. That's a fun graph to know how to do. So I'm going to go to the math menu, and then over again to the number thing, and choose number 5. Number 5 is the greatest integer function. Do you remember that's like a step function? Okay, and I'm just gonna, whoops, excuse me. I'm gonna type in just like greatest integer of x. I'm gonna close the parentheses, and then it's in zoom standard. So I'm gonna hit graph, and you can see that this is a step function. Now, what this does not tell you is where the open circles and the closed circles are, right? This a step function needs to be a function. So at the edges, they can't have closed circles on both the steps, like on one right edge and one left edge. So you're gonna have to figure that out by yourself, but at least you can get a general idea of what it looks like. Okay, our last example of what to do, and we're going to graph another parabola, and this time we're going to practice changing the window and zooming out, and then therefore also zooming in. Let's just graph another parabola, but we're going to graph it where it has a very small coefficient in the front, very small leading coefficient. So I'm going to type 0 point, and you don't have to do the 0 first, but I like to sometimes, 0, 1, and then x squared. So 0.01 x squared. So you know it's going to be a parabola. You're thinking to yourself, okay, I do know about parent functions. When I put a number in front, like that a value, it's going to dilate it. Because this number is less than 1, it's going to make it squishier, right? And it's going to like make it wider. And so you're expecting it to look like a parabola, but you just know it's not going to look like a normal parabola. Okay, I'm going to hit graph. I am in zoom standard, so I'm just going to hit graph. And you're like, oh, huh. Well, I guess it's a parabola, but it really doesn't look like a parabola. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things is like maybe your window is like too tight, or maybe your window is too large. So we can adjust that. So for zoom, we were like choosing like standard zoom windows before. Our favorites are zoom standard number 6 and zoom trig number 7. But you can also zoom in and zoom out. out. So one of the things that we can do is let's go ahead and zoom out. So zoom out is number 3. I've toggled down and I'm going to hit number 3, or you can just hit number 3. And you'll see that cursor that's blinking. Now I can move that cursor and zoom in on a different spot and make that the center of my zoom, but I don't think I want to do that. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it right there at 0, 0. So I don't know why I moved that. I guess I was just showing you what to do. Okay, I'm going to keep it right there at 0, 0, and I'm going to make that be the center of my zooming out, and I'm just going to hit enter. And it has now zoomed out a little bit, okay? I want to zoom out again, and you don't have to go back into the menu because right now it's in menu zoom out. So I'm just going to hit enter again, and it's now zoomed out. Okay, so you can kind of see that's a little bit better. I can kind of see the whole graph, and it looks more parabola-like for us to see visually. But another thing that you could do is, now that it looks like this, and you're like, oh, it is a parabola. Yep, you're right. You can also just adjust the window manually. So knowing how to adjust the window manually is a great thing to do. Right now, this window on the x-axis goes from -160 to +160 and is counting by ones, which is why you saw that x-axis got all crowded up, because it's actually trying to do a tick mark at every one. Obviously, that's not going to work. And then the same thing for the y's. So let's just be a little jazzy and completely just do this differently. I want to do the x values to go from -100 to +100. So I'm just typing the numbers in and then hitting down. And then I think I'm going to count by tens on the x's. I think that's a good idea. And then on the y values, I'm actually going to go from -10 to +10. You don't have to make them be the same thing. You can skew it. You can go from 0 to 100. You can do whatever you want. And then I'm going to count by ones for the scale. You don't have to touch anything else. And now when I hit graph, I've adjusted the window so much that it looks like a normal parabola, okay? But I definitely need to remind myself that, oh, I have messed with the window function. And so, yeah, it looks different, okay? So just so I don't mess up in the future, I'm going to go back to window, and I am going, nope, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go to zoom, and I'm going to go back to zoom standard just so it's good for my future endeavors. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it, okay? That's how we do it, okay? All of those things, I was hoping that was quick. I actually think it turned out longer than I meant to, but just in case you needed a refresher on how to graph, there you go. So good luck with your graphing calculator, remembering how to do all your things. Remember that for your graphing calculator, you want to have a TI-84 plus, either the regular one or the CE one. I do like the color one. I did buy it for myself, but it's not necessary to have the color one. Okay, guys, have fun with your homework, and I think that's it. Have a good one. Bye, guys. See ya.